Yeah, I'm going to be talking about people hacking. So if we could strap in seatbelts on, and here we go. So first of all, a lot of people don't understand what people hacking is. When I say I'm a people hacker, people think I mean something like this. This is not what I do. This is also not what I do. So I'm a hacker. I'm not the type of hacker that you see wearing a hoodie and working with technology. In fact, I'm something called a social engineer. And social engineering is all about working with people, hacking the human. So hence people hacker. Couple of definitions for you. Promise you this is going to be more or less the last time you see any kind of writing on here. But it's really about manipulating the humans, manipulation of human factors to gain unauthorized access. It's also the active weaponization of human vulnerabilities, behaviors, and errors. So I'm going to tell you a bit about what I do as a day job, what I used to do more of, and how we weaponize those errors. So let's have a look. It's kind of in the main about people. So 2 parts to this. First thing I do, if you ask me nicely and very politely, and if you don't ask me to do anything illegal, and if you pay me some money, I will break into your offices or your building. I will absolutely have a look at if there's any non-technical way to get past your security measures, particularly using the people that work for you, and basically burglarize your premises. And the reason that I would do that is so that we can show you what's gone wrong. We can show you how I did it, so that if you like, the real bad guys can't do that in my place. I don't do it this way at all. So I don't use tech. I don't do that. In fact, I'd be more likely to do it like this. So imagine that you've got reception in the building that you work in. I'd be likely to turn up and sort of say, I'm going to go measure your carpets or your curtains, or I've hurt myself. So I've walked into many an office where I've got a cut finger and asked them for some first aid. And then when they let me in and they help me, like the kind of people all of us are, I will then go off a wandering and pick things up. I might say that I'm lost. I might deliver a package, and inside the box there might be recording devices or cables that log every stroke on the keyboard. I might pretend to be a cleaner, or I might pretend that I'm there to do some maintenance on your vending machines and things like that within office buildings. So that's really kind of what I do. Don't worry. I know that I am from Liverpool and I'm talking about being a burglar. I get this all the time. 364 days of the year, I'm fine with that. Don't catch me on day 365. I did learn how to do this as a youth in Liverpool. There wasn't an awful lot of ballet or polo to do, so we did start breaking into buildings. These were empty buildings. We didn't really do it with a view to take anything or to break anything. It's really just a case of exploration. But whilst we were doing it, some of them were nicer than others. This monstrosity was opposite where I lived and got into there. But while we were doing it, we were really doing urban exploration, looking at the inside, looking at beauty and decay, and also looking at things like how to run very fast, how to pick locks, how to take notice of people's security guard, particularly routine. So that's kind of what I learned to do. And to cut a long story short, I gradually got asked to do this in a professional capacity and to break into some buildings in and around Liverpool, write a report, tell them how I did it, and then they'd strengthen their security posture. So they put new controls in. I eventually had broken into pretty much every building in Liverpool, ended up going further afield, and eventually doing this on a global basis, Europe first, and then over the pond. And before too long, I'd broken into every type of business you can imagine, including fun fairs, sports stadia, including the best one in the world, and also things like banks. So I was asked to break into a bank in Germany, not that difficult. This particular one had biotech, so a fingerprint entrance. And because I don't work with technology, there are people even listening to this, colleagues of mine, who are so technically perfect, they could hack this and do all those things. But I work with humans, so I bandaged my hands. The security guard let me in out of sympathy because I look so innocent. Factories where they'd spent a fortune on perimeter security, you'll never get in unless someone leaves the door open. But because it's England, if I put this on the door, then nobody shuts the door and they let me in. Even got into the Tower of London. To be fair, this was just a talk, a little bit like this one. I'm supposed to be giving a talk. I have a bag full of kit. I'm stopped by this huge security guard who wants to check the bag. I don't want to show him what's in my bag because I'm a burglar. What's in my bag is not easily explained away. Multiple IDs, smoke bombs, hammers, USB sticks, lockpicks, the works. So how do I get past him in a technical way? So I got a bottle of water. I spilt it on him. I wiped him down in his general waist area. He was embarrassed and he let me in, and I was into the Tower of London. So the day job consists of things like this. A large company usually will ask me to try and get into their building. I'll go through the staff entrance as opposed to the front entrance. Someone's going to let me through. I'll have been hanging out in the smoking area, maybe stolen a security pass or two, maybe made one. I'll wear a high-vis jacket and a clipboard because nobody ever questions anything if you do that. Go into the building, avoid the cameras, get to a point where there are cameras, and I will cover them with pieces of cardboard or blue tack because I'm not technical. Pick up some keys maybe. Leave some USBs lying around because if you leave USBs lying around, someone will plug them in, and that leaves the technical guys the option to monitor who's done that. If I was a criminal, that would be full of malware. As I'm not a criminal, it's just for monitoring purposes. I collect any information that might be important, make myself a cup of tea, usually, because then that shows that I've managed to get to the staff area and made a beverage, and I'm, again, very innocent looking. No one ever stops me. Maybe get into an office. I leave dozens of business cards in and around the office just for the lulls. And then maybe send myself an email from the client's computer. Nice office. I'll send a report on Monday, have a good one, and make myself scarce, often to the roof. And just so you can see, this is obviously a stock picture of Canary Wharf. I've been on top of most of these buildings. Like to spend time on the roof. The roof's a good escape route. But I do have lots of pictures from my own phone of the various buildings that I've managed to get into. And as you can see, they're not so perfect. You tend to hold onto your phone quite tightly when you're 9 floors up. Go around fire escapes, slide down roofs, sometimes off roofs, survey other buildings to see how I can get into them from the roof of this building, go along window sills, climb up drain pipes, break into buildings, sometimes fall off roofs, and my phone takes pictures like this. So that's really the day job. And what I would say to you is, much as I love that job, the burglarizing side of things, it does die a death during a lockdown. Unfortunately, there's a whole other part of what anyone who's a social engineer does. I don't really work on locks. I have lockpicks with me sometimes, but really for demo purposes, because it's the humans that let me in, and it's the humans that really I'm going to talk to you about now. Because you might be thinking, but if she's a burglar and she robs like large companies, it doesn't really affect me. But I want you to know that it does affect you, right? Because I'm not the only one that does it. The other people that do this are people who, technical hackers, use blended human-based attacks to get to you, as do special interest groups, as does organized crime, and even insider threats. So within companies, someone working against the company from within the company, all use social engineering as part of their attacks. So, alarming statistic. This is a tech meetup. 95% of security breaches are down to human error or manipulation. In other words, every time you receive a phishing email, there's a social engineer writing that script. Every time you get a dodgy text message, and most people are far more slack about what we call smishing messages than they would be about stuff that came in on their computer, if they even look after it at all, that will have been written by a social engineer. Every dodgy phone call that tries to get your bank details, that calls your mum and your gran, they are written by social engineers. Every time someone tries to get hold of your password or your details, or tells you that they've got your files in a ransomware attack and that they're going to expose them or not let you have them back, all of that stuff is written by social engineers. All the fake streaming sites, all the password attempts, arguably, social engineers are behind them, because someone's got to write that script and someone's got to execute the script. And it's so huge. So 62% of businesses report this in 2019, social engineering or phishing attacks. But they're just the businesses that have reported it, right? A lot of businesses don't report this because they're embarrassed. We always say there are the businesses that realize they've been social engineered, and there's the businesses that don't realize that they've been social engineered yet. So it doesn't matter whether you're a huge company like this one. So imagine you've got a huge building like this, maybe 3,000 employees. It's just 3,000 potential ways in, 3,000 people with a little piece of a jigsaw that's going to help me build a profile and let myself in. But 43% of cyber attacks are aimed at smaller businesses, little companies, a dozen employees, 100 employees, easy to profile, easy to work out the relationships and who's got access to what. So those are easy to do it. And anyway, they provide a route back to the big companies. But the thing I wanted to say is, this is so huge. It's so lucrative. Data breaches, first half of 2019, 4.1 billion. Average cost of a data breach, $150 million. This is lucrative, it's worth doing, and most businesses do very little to prevent social engineers, people hackers doing anything to get into the business. And again, you might well be thinking, how does this even affect me, right? Because this is about business. But it affects you because social engineering is an attack on people, on individuals. Everyone is worth hacking. You might think, I'm not rich enough, I'm not important enough to be hacked. But everyone's rich enough and important enough to be hacked, in as much as you're a link in the chain, you're a node on the network. You are the person that connects me to everyone you know, to the work that you do. And in that sense, it's absolutely worth hacking you. Social engineers, malicious social engineers, see you as just collateral damage on the way to the target. And it's you that they're going to target. And the way that they do it is through something called spearfishing. I'll talk to you about how we do that now. But spearfishing isn't like fishing that you might be familiar with. Spearfishing is more specific, and it absolutely will make sure that you are intrigued at least at the approach that is made. Now, I am old school and I use something called a crazy wall, but even less sort of old school social engineers use a way of grabbing information, plotting the information out on some sort of collated device, and then that information is used to make sure that we know enough about the target so that that target will pick up the email, will answer the call. We're just building pieces of a jigsaw in order to make sure that when we approach you, it's compelling and that you will click. And it used to be difficult, but it's not difficult now because everyone puts everything that they ever do onto social media. So I used to have to sit outside buildings to do surveillance. I had to watch people, to watch which bar they went to and listen into the conversation. But now everyone puts everything that they ever do online. So Zuckerberg said, the question isn't, what do we want to know about people? It's what people want to tell about themselves. And what people want to tell about themselves is everything. Every time we go for a run, people put it on Strava. Now I know where you run. Now I know where you live. Now I know how fast you run and what shops you run past, right? So an email about that is likely to land. Maybe you review things on TripAdvisor. So now I know where you eat, what you think. I can send emails about money offers, about food, about the places that you visit, the places that you know. I mean, what about work? The amount of corporate sites that have photographs of their team meetings with lanyards and alarm systems in the background and team details on whiteboards behind the photograph. I mean, our families, our pets, our hobbies, the things that we care about, the things that frighten us. Every single person has got some way in. Everyone cares about something. And even if you're not online, there's enough information about all of us for me to start to build that jigsaw. We're all vulnerable and we're all potentially a target. And people really think I'm careful or I'm not really online, but you're only as secure as your most chatty family member, the kids, the cousins, the friends, the colleagues. That's how secure you are, because they're a route to you and you're a route into business. We make up the picture, we fill in the jigsaw puzzle, and then it's just a case of how we get to individuals to make sure that they click on whatever approach that we make. People, to a certain extent, behave in a certain given way. We know that psychologically we all respond to certain things. It's kind of automatic. So whether you're bored and you don't pay enough attention to the details or the addresses of the email, whether you're suspicious of people, but the wrong people, and expect hackers to look like this and wear hoodies and work with computers and not to look like this. Whether you're curious and you plug in that USB that you find because you think there's details that you might want to know, whether we're distracted, whether we respond to emotional content, things like being frightened because you receive an email that says you've got parking tickets or speeding fines and hold you to something quick. So time bounds it. So we don't have time to think, time to be rational. Emotional content kicks logic off the cliff, and now we're time bound as well. Whether we're greedy and think that there's a reward coming our way, whether it's a small reward like a free coffee or something bigger, mix it in with a little bit of flattery. Maybe it's a job offer, something that sounds great with a big pay package, but you have to click and sign that non-disclosure agreement. Or maybe it's one of the cruelest things, offering you hope, companionship. We've seen romance scams soar during this pandemic as people reached out and wanted some romantic, some friendship during this difficult time. All of these things are what I do every day. It's what social engineers do. We don't work on locks necessarily. We work on the humans. So I have 4 little things that I'm going to tell you that you need to pass on. You need to work on humans too and pass this information on because it is so, so dangerous. Firstly, be careful. Anything that raises your emotional temperature, anything that kicks your logic off the cliff, no matter what the emotion is, be very careful of it. Do not click on links or attachments unless you're certain who they came from. Verify it externally first. If an email sounds dodgy, cut and paste that text into Google with scam after it and see if it comes up and tells you it's wrong. Do not be rushed. Anytime anyone time bound you, says we need this answer quickly. If you don't do this by this time, anytime that happens, be mega suspicious. Stop, think, and if anything, slow down. And finally, if money is mentioned, stop and do not do anything, because that is your red flag that you're being socially engineered. Verify, verify, verify. I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes, which is by a writer called Gabriel Garcia Marquez, who said, all human beings have 3 lives. You have a public life, a private life, and a secret life. You need to work hard to keep it that way. Thank you very much.